Sandy, are you with us?
Yep.
Wonderful. All right, so I did kind of introduce them earlier before the break, but I would love for you both to introduce yourselves and give us a little background and a little introduction to you. So Sandy, if you want to go first.
All right. I feel like I have a lot of tabs open right now. I'm not even sure. My computer sounds like it's going to blow up. My name's Sandy Oliver. I am an assistive technology specialist in West Contra Costa Unified School District. We are really large and diverse. I'm a former language arts teacher and also taught at San Francisco State for the technology class that was required for teachers to get their credential. So I've been really involved in ed tech and for a long time. And I think my job has morphed into kind of an accessibility coach over the last 7 years. So it's a little bit less about working one-to-one with students who have learning disabilities, but trying to kind of that UDL make accessibility available for everyone. So it's just been kind of interesting and overwhelming at the same time.
Yeah, makes sense. And Miss Marianne.
Hi everyone. I'm Marianne Nafos. I'm actually an instructional specialist at for the EL Achievement Department. I'm also from West Contra Costa. I think Corey and Sandra and I have been there more than 2 decades at the district. I've been a teacher in the bilingual programs for most of my professional career. I consider myself a teacher too, even though I'm out of the classroom. And yeah, one of my passions is and commitment is to make sure English learners receive high quality education and to remove barriers. And that's what I'm very passionate about UDL, and it's like, how come we don't get it, And I brought it up at its services meeting, we need UDL. This is how we build teacher capacity. This is how we make create more happy environments, less frustration. But there is a lot to learn and much work to align our efforts.
I love that. Yeah, so the reason why I really wanted to have this conversation with Marianne and Sandra is because they are fighting the good fight, and I feel like they think 90% of their day is how can we get these tools into the hands of students so that they can learn and grow in the best way possible. They also work really closely with their tech department as well, really trying to get that out. And so, I wanted to bring them here and highlight, just them talking about the ways they're working to try and push, build traction for student accessibility across the board. So with that, one of my first questions to both of you is just a very simple one. What text help tools do you use? So you are using text help tools, not Don Johnston tools. So what are those tools?
Would it be helpful to have a little background?
Yeah, sure, please. Yeah, that's actually, yep.
I don't even actually know how I found out about the Read and Write toolbar, but I somehow found out about it. I think I'm back at Nora will laugh. I went back into my email when Corey sent the questions. And I think 2015, 2016 is when we started.
That sounds about right.
Exploring it. So we started off, I think, getting it for free because it was brand new, and did some great trainings with teachers. And then I think we bought maybe 150 licenses, and then 500, and then 1,000, and then 2,000. So I was managing those one by one in a Google spreadsheet, and just until this past fall. So I've been doing that myself, adding students manually, running the admin tool, giving those students access if they had an IEP or a 504, and then crossing my fingers and hoping that someone shows them how to use it, or, you know, that they are allowed to use it in the classroom. So this is the very first year we've had Orbit Note and Read and Write on the domain. And somehow someone found some learning recovery money this summer and did that, which kind of worries me because I don't want to lose it, but hopefully we can get it again. So then that kind of led me, once we had it for everyone, then ed tech started to listen a little bit more. And then I got to work with Marianne. We made this big connection around English language learners. So that kind of like, it's been super exciting, but I'm always kind of like nervous we're going to lose the money too.
Yeah. And so can you tell us about that partnership and how, you know, going from a group that might just be housed in special education or for a small group of students, and then going to an unlimited, I'm going a little bit off the question. So
That's fine.
Okay. I really think that that's probably really, you know, really good to know and understand, not only, you know, maybe the challenges you've had, but really how you're trying to push it out and build traction in the district with connecting with Marianne and what you're doing to support that.
Yeah, my experience had been also in around 2016. I was at TOSA, so I stepped out of the classroom and I was at TOSA in the computer lab at one of the elementary schools, and I would click in the purple puzzle just, you know, by clicking, but I had no idea what it was until I asked Darcy Lone, who was the elementary coach, what is it, right? But I never quite used him until this year when Corey, Sandy, and the EdTech, Lori Roberts, put up the workshop for teachers. And it's like the email came from one of our RSP teachers at an elementary school. So I signed up and it's like, oh my goodness, this is wonderful, no? And it's currently it's the special ed department committed and made the purchase, no? And we have it for next year, full premium. I don't think we're going back, but with all the cuts, who knows? We may have to just maybe share the cost. We don't know, but I see the potential. It's wonderful, no? So I start using it more myself, no? Especially the highlighter and the sweeper, and promote it every meeting that I would go or would visit the internationals, and it's like, oh, you gotta use Read and Write, you know. And then Sandy has been going to schools to do, you know, specific site-based trainings, and everybody loves that because one of the best things is when teachers use it and they see the students and they tell another teacher, you know, I'm using it, or the kids themselves tell one another. Yeah, so it's a budding process, but we hope to continue to, because it really allows the students to use tools that they're gonna see them at the CASP interface, in the LPAC interface, and it gives them access. You know, they may not be able to read or write, but it's giving them access to the content, to the thinking. And I don't want to get into another question, but I'm going to stop right here. Yeah.
No, and I definitely want to get into, I think it's amazing what you both are collaborating on, and with me, I haven't been there in I think the last 2 sessions, but really around the testing, state testing that we've found, and I've been talking a lot about that. But before that question, what I would love to ask you is, you know, some of the challenges you've had in trying to push the tools out. What are some of those challenges that you're facing, either systematically or, you know, just within your own capabilities and time constraints?
Well, I mean, I think Marianne's probably one of the first people who has worked with me. Like, so it's really nice to have a partner. I mean, even though EdTech is on board, like they're not here, it's a connection, but not as strong as it should be. So, and I think also because we started with the tools as special education accommodations, we have to dissolve that that's what it is. We're slowly, and this is only the first year. So, I mean, my mind is always, it takes like 3 to 5 years for something to happen, really, especially in a large district. So it's been really fun. I think that I have the slides up, but I mean, I think working with Marianne on the testing interface and making connections to how you could be using accessibility tools day to day to prepare students for technology, online exams where they might have accessibility. Those, we did a couple workshops and they were really well received and really and well attended for our district for after school. So that's been helpful. And then I think planning the workshops together and recording them and being able to then repeat them at school sites. I've been doing like mini lessons at staff meetings, have been really successful. I think for the first time, I actually have high school teachers, asking me about accessible PDFs. And I mean, again, this is, like 7 years in the making. So it's not easy in a large district.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Marianne.
No, I'm just thinking that what Sandy just mentioned, but I also love working with her, and it's the issue with accessibility. It's almost seen that it's for special ed kids. If there's something wrong with you, you get accessibility tools, but they don't make the connection that, my goodness, we use our phones accessibility all the time. So why are we not using it in instruction? When we did this accessibility for the LPAC testing, and it was so well attended, no? And we know that it's not just for the testing, but we need to have it during instruction, no? So it's then, why is it that we are still guarding the gates of knowledge, for the kids? So we are filtering, and that's what we're filtering what kids have access to, because we still may want to be in control, or maybe we don't trust technology. And that's something that I heard. I'm very careful about what I introduce, what technology tools I introduce to my students. And to me, it was like, well, these are tools that allow your kids to be more independent, right? You're not putting them into the Google search universe to get lost and then be exposed to questionable content. But you are really putting tools that allow them to be in charge, to be the drivers of their learning.
That was beautiful. That's one of the best quotes I've heard. Why are we still guarding the gates of knowledge? I think I'm going to utilize that from here on out.
Go for it.
Thanks. I'll fight you, Marianne.
I mean, I think having Marianne's perspective of always, like, if I'm doing a training, making sure I'm hitting the English language components. I think if you get caught up and you're doing a fast training and you're talking fast, you focus more on just the more common accessibility things, right? And then, but she's always like, well, make sure you show this and that, because it's good for the English language learners. So it's been really nice to have that, and it would be nice to then also have that mathematical or scientific lens too, and then also making sure that the right people are at the table. I mean, I think that's our table's like half empty still, but hopefully more people will join us, because I think we're slowly getting into the different kind of departments within a district that isn't always at the district level working collaboratively right now.
Yeah, agreed. So we've been touching on the testing space, and I just want to say how you guys are rolling that out and what we're doing with that, or what we started out was really very impactful for me, because we went in, we took tests ourselves of the SBAC and the LPAC, and understanding how cluttered and inaccessible that test is in general was such an aha for me. And understanding what are the universal supports that are in there that can support students is going to be huge, I think, in general for all students, especially right now. And so, one of my big, I was so excited about is, even though you can't use some accessibility tools in the platform, there are ways you can connect day-to-day stuff of what you're doing, in your classroom to make those testing, those state tests more accessible for students. Just having that, like you said, having that knowledge of what do highlighters do? How do they help? Can you talk?
You want me to share that? I can share that Canva slideshow. Would people want that? Does anyone in the audience want the?
Yeah, I was going to ask you to share. We can just send it out after as well. But can you guys talk a little bit about, what you did and why you thought it was important to push with some training, some testing training, and the supports that go with that?
Well, I've been I've been at heads with accommodations and testing for many years now and Nora knows a lot about this. Like they say things were available, but they weren't, right? Like, so they would say I could give a student a read aloud, but it didn't work, or word prediction is still listed and it's still not available, at least in California. So then they also didn't know how to use what was in there. So I don't know. It's people listen about testing more than they do day-to-day instruction. That's the reality, right? They listen because it's high stakes, right? So we kind of got people in through the back door by showing like, these are the accommodations, and there's things in here that your students could be accessing, but they're not going to use it during testing. Like, they're never going to highlight anything unless you're doing that or modeling that in your day-to-day instruction. So we kind of like flipped it on end. And the reality is most of the teachers probably that participated in our trainings weren't doing any of these things as a part of their normal practice, right? So then it just got their wheels thinking about, I might play a role in my students not using these tools during testing, and not just the special ones. So we kind of went through what was available, and this was more LPAC, but there's a big overlap between LPAC and CASP. It's more alike than different, and then backed it up with what you could be doing with the read and write toolbar day to day. So kind of did a little comparison. So and we logged in as a student taking a practice test with accommodations or without, and kind of showed what it looks like. So it was really, I don't know, just kind of happened, and it was good.
Yeah,
I don't know if I answered that question.
I was a test coordinator at a site when I was out of the classroom as a TOSA. Like, you'll be in charge of the test. I had no idea because I taught first grade. So I've never logged into a CAS session to open the test. But anyway, it's possible to learn. But working with Sandy, and her eyes to navigate all the little tools, right? Because oftentimes the kids are thrown into the test session, right, with no idea, no practice of what the different tools can do for them. No? And even for kids who may have the accommodations too. And what I learned with one of the online CDE accessibility trainings is that these tools are not very useful if they're not used during instruction. So that clicked to me, and that was the time that I was attending Sandy and Corey, your test, and it's like, oh my God, we really need to promote this, and teachers really wanted to learn. Like Sandy said, they want to help the students get better, do better in the testing. I think for English learners, there are some tools. CASP has even more tools, when they take the math and the ELA that are available for kids with accommodations or in the IEPs, but also it can be recommended by the teacher. And sometimes we don't spend enough time when we do the required testing sessions or for the teachers, we don't spend enough time on what are these resources, each of these tools are, and they provide access. So that's what it was, I think, very helpful to do this LPAC with Sandy and show, we log into the kids' portal and they can see what a student has available.
Love that. Thank you so much. I think I will actually, I'm glad you raised your hand, Nora, because I I would love to have any questions from the audience for Sandy and Marianne. So Nora?
Well, first off, I just want to say that I love that the two of you like banded together to do this and offer the support for the teachers. I think I can speak for the other text helpers here that starting around the 1st of March, my inbox is just bubbling up with all kinds of frantic questions about assessments, right? And the fact of the matter is, you know, we all have a lot to do, and then the assessment window rolls around and everybody's, you know, kind of running around with their hair on fire trying to make it work. And it's difficult, right? And one of the questions that breaks my heart to hear year after year after year is, how do I get this accommodation for my student on the test? And I say, you have to do it in the fall. You know, so be ready to do this in the fall. There's a reason why on the CASP you have to do this in the fall. I mean, best practice is that your student would get an accommodation that they need all the time, and then they would get that accommodation on the assessment, right? So, I mean, if you think about it, if you were to give a student an accommodation right before they take a test, is it a test of whether the student can use the technology, or is it a test of the actual, like, you know, standards-based strategies that the student has mastered, right? So it makes sense that that would be best practice, but it just seems to be a hurdle that I see people run into year after year after year. And it just breaks my heart to have to be able to say, I can tell you how to do it, but it's too late for this student this year, right? Like,
Yeah,
it just, my heart sinks every
minute, right?
March
It's not
because
about
I have to answer that question so many times. And it's a really sad thing. And I think, since so many people on this call are assistive technology people, I'm guessing, Sandy, you've heard this plenty of times. You may have a teacher that is resistant to supporting a student's accommodations because they say that it is a crutch, right? And we can't give this student a crutch. I feel like these are two sides of the same coin, and that by having the kind of training and workshop that you guys are having, you're answering the before, the during, and the after, right? So I'm really impressed that you guys were able to do that. That's great.
Yeah. It's interesting too, like understanding. Again, I used to do testing, obviously, when I was in the classroom, and working with Sandy and Marianne, it brought it back how I was not doing a good job of supporting my students prior to the testing. Again, because, you know, we talk about accessibility all the time, but that test is, you know, if there's so much on there. And so whatever we can do to help support knowledge before the test with technology, then they're doing such a great job of it, Marianne and Sandy. For sure, you guys are.
I'm just curious if, I'm not sure, I guess I missed what everyone's roles, but I'm also really involved in Bookshare, which there is an overlap here with accessibility, and just recently learned that Bookshare is available for students who don't have IEPs and 504s. And I play by the rules. I didn't know that, right? So this whole idea of students with print disabilities is kind of a little bit changing right now. And so when Mary and I were going through all of the accommodations, and I was watching all the videos at the state site. Are most people here from California?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the CASP, you know, and I called CASP and had a conversation, called the helpline. I never knew that a teacher can make a recommendation to turn on text to speech. For a student that doesn't have an IEP or a 504. I didn't know that. And I called principals who said, nope, no, it has to be an SST and it has to be a medical. Nope. And the state definitely said that's not true. It's just like Bookshare. It's a professional opinion. If a student is reading significantly below, or for some reason is not, you can turn on the text to speech, not for passages, but for directions and things. People like fighting me on that. And I'm like, I just called the state. Like, I'm not making this up, right? So I think that kind of information I don't think our teachers know that, right? And then you got to work with the learning center teacher who needs to work with the gen ed teacher to work with the testing coordinator at the site to make sure that gets into TOMS, and, you know, so there's a lot of talking that's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a designated support. So if you have students who are low for different reasons, or have some sort of a processing or a visual impairment that isn't maybe in an IEP, they can have text to speech.
Love
Turned on.
that. Yeah. And so I do have a folder from West Contra that that has like a one pager, like what are the universal supports, what are the designated supports, what are the accommodations. So we can get that to you guys as well. I think just one, if we want to wrap it up right now, can you talk a little bit about how, everything that we're talking about, how it relates to UDL and MTSS, and especially on, if we're talking about testing and those tier 1 supports. I feel like those are going to be those universal supports. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Sandy and Marianne, it's like highlighters are a universal support. Text to speech is designated, right? That's what you're saying. But there's a lot more universal supports that I realized in there as well. And so that obviously goes with, our tier 1 supports for MTSS. Any thoughts around that, Sandy and Marianne? Anything else?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. Which, like text to speech, sometimes for LPAC is usually an accommodation, right? However, for CAS, for instance, and it's changing. It can be an embedded support, but it's also then the text to speech can be sometimes just for the questions, to read the questions. Usually that's the embedded support. And it keeps changing. Like this year, they have added for the math questions in CASP, you can have the stack translations in Spanish, right? With text to speech for the stimulus, right? For the questions and the stimulus, which is the content of the question. So you just have to go and comb through, but there is a lot of the things are accessible through kids, especially for the CASP. No, LPAC has a little more restrictions. Yeah, but you have to kind of look at the matrix that you probably, it's in the materials to share, and it shows which one is available for which. Yeah, that was just a little note. Going back to the question.
Universal. Well, I mean, I think the more teachers who are using this and modeling it all the time, using it for their own practice, you're doing report card comments and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I've been doing tech training for a long time. So like with digital photography, like with digital images and importing, I always started with people taking pictures of their personal life or using a digital camera for a vacation. And then how do you use those pictures? Like they have to connect it to their own practice. Then they have to be teaching with it, and the students need to see them comfortable, a little, not an expert, but just using it. So I think we've been really trying to, I think that has been the big thing, is you can't just turn it on the day before the exam and expect your students to know how to do it. And it was funny because we had a lot of teachers, not a lot, but it comes up a lot, like with dictation. Well, how am I going to do that? Because people are going to be talking at once. And Stephanie Hearn, who's our testing director, who is not very tech savvy, and I've pushed her hard on accommodations, she had the best comeback. She was like, if you're using dictation in your classroom all the time, then you've figured that out. You know how to have more than one student talking at a time. And I was like, go, Stephanie. Like, I was worried she was going to criticize what I was saying, but she was like, you've got your corners, or you've got to create a schedule, or you figure that out. If they need to say it, then you already are doing that every day, which is totally right? Or if kids are listening to text, they've got earbuds or whatever. It shouldn't be something you're figuring out for your testing window.
Love it.
Be pretty comfortable by then. It should just happen.
Yeah. Great. I love that. Well, thank you, Sandra and Marianne. We're running out of time, but I could probably talk to you for hours about this. I love what you're doing. And, just as I'm sure if you guys need support in the audience, I'm going to unsolicited offer Marianne and Sandy.
Yeah.
If
you have questions, I mean, email us. And there's a lot in that Canva. I don't actually love Canva after doing that presentation, but there's a lot of links, and feel free to borrow any of that. The format worked. I'll just say that what we did worked. very well. Like I haven't done a training where we've gotten that high of attendance and feedback in a long time. And just on, I mean, and I think it's a hard time. Just on the last note, I just was on a district tech planning committee post COVID. You know, we've got these elementary teachers that are pulling back with technology. They're going back to paper and pencil, and not allowing students to use the tech. I mean, and then we've got high school teachers that are using it too much, and students aren't talking or doing collaborative work. So I think we're in a really weird time. Kind of have to revisit, almost like go back to tech standards and common sense media and what is acceptable use. We've gotten a little bit rogue in the tech world. So I think it's just kind of it's a good time. People are looking for boundaries and help again, like they were maybe 10 years ago.
Love that. Yeah, so true. We're seeing that across the board. So, well, thank you again, Marianne and Sandy. I so appreciate you taking the time to share with us your thoughts. And again, if anybody has any questions, send them to us and we can, connect you with Sandy and Marianne or ask those questions for you. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Nora to wrap us up.
Great. And thanks again, Marianne and Sandy. This is the first time I've seen the two of you together, and wow, you make a great team. That's awesome. I love it.
Absolutely.
Lucky for West Contra. That's a good thing. I am going to quickly show my screen here, and you'll see that in our kind of wrap up, what we did was we put together a student scenario exercise. So if you click here, this is going to take you to a Jamboard. So I'll drop that link in there. We don't have a whole lot of time here, but you'll notice that we shared with you before the literacy tools and how those relate to UDL, and the math tools and how those relate to UDL, and how those kind of things can empower your students to take charge of their own learning. And I wanted to take just a very brief time, just 5 minutes. And in a way, I was going to say that is not like real life, but in another way, you know what? It is like real life. A lot of times we really do only have 5 minutes to do this kind of stuff. If you flip through the Jamboard, you'll see a number of different student scenarios. You'll see some different issues that students might encounter, and we just wanted to have your input, some of the things that we discussed today, and how you might try and find ways to help empower that student. So this is a Jamboard. It's editable. Y'all can go in here and add, if you needed to give a student some support with attention and focus, what are some of the strategies that you might use? And I'm giving you some low-hanging fruit here. Obviously, engagement is going to be, an issue there, right? So you can also edit here on these Post-its if you want to add more about, how you would have that connect with the engagement aspect of UDL. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on a timer here, and we'll just give you 5 minutes to look at that. And then we'll take a minute or two to share out. Okay, coming up on 1 minute here.
Oh no.
All right, there we are. So let's kind of just get a quick check if there's anybody that had a moment and wants to share with the rest of the group something that they thought they could bring back to a student for support. Was there anybody that had anything that they wanted to share?
And just as a FYI, we probably have like a 3-minute wrap up. So we'll probably be 3 to 5 minutes a little bit late. I'm hoping you guys can stay on, but I wanted to respect your time and let you know just how much time we have left.
Oh my goodness, look at this. This is awesome.
Can you share your screen?
Yes, let me go ahead and I will just quickly share my screen. So even if we don't, like talk through this, y'all have access to this so you guys can see it. So we can see here, somebody was looking at writing challenges, speak as I type, voice to speech, choice board. I love it. Videotape the presentation, slideshow, podcast. Yes, yes, yes. Choice, 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 right? So that would be action and expression for sure. This is great. I love this. That's awesome. We've got a newcomer. Look at this. Okay. Use the translator tool in Docs. Okay. Love it. Looks like, oh, okay. Understanding with math. So we've got provide, I'll move this down here. Providing manipulatives, real or digital, right? Okay. Love it. Graph paper. Accessing core text. Online dictionaries, vocabulary. Generate videos, voice typing, video and audio material. Love it. And that kind of ties back to the audio piece. You'll know your students better based on what you might find out with UPAR, right? Screen masking and audio maker. Those are great tools for students that need a little support with attention and focus. Okay, let's see, digital manipulatives for connections with math. I'm sorry we didn't have more time with Tina Shea because those manipulatives are really fun. And there's so much in there to support your students. Did we have any other, any folks that got further along here? It looks like maybe not. So I appreciate everybody kind of chiming in with some ideas there. This time just flew by for us. I hope it did the same for you. We definitely wanted to have some of that like collegial talk and collegial interface, which I feel like we did here, but we could all probably use more of it. So I'll let you wrap that up, Corey.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all for coming. I feel like, again, same with you, Nora. I feel like we could have been here a lot longer, heard a lot more of the voices in the room. And had a lot more deeper discussion around, universal design for learning and how it connects to MTSS. So I see a need there. We can definitely, as Nora spoke to at the beginning of this session, we can absolutely come to your district specifically and do something similar or, mold it any way you want. I'm just going back to those firm goals. No UDL and MTSS vocabulary. We're talking about proactive and responsive. We definitely talked a lot about that. Tier 1 for sure, those expert learners. How can students, become expert learners and be able to figure out what they need to learn best, understand the intersection between UDL and MTSS and be able to speak to it. I feel like probably we could have gotten a little deeper with that with more time, but I'm hoping you could see definitely a connection and be able to clearly state that moving forward. If not, we're going to give you a ton of resources. So please, and when you get the book, please, take some time to read that book, at least chapter 3, and get some great information. I think we all learned on our team a lot about UDL and the connections between MTSS and beyond. And then know which digital tools support access to content for specific learner needs, and share with me or share with the group. We won't have time to share. However, those matrix that Nora pointed out, those are beautiful for this, talking about what tools work best for the different areas of learning and the different areas of the brain. If anybody wants to share out any final thoughts, we would love that. That was my kind of final thought.
I just appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to be here on a Friday.
Yeah, me too. I know you are all very busy, so thank you. And it was nice meeting some new faces too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
I just wish I could have this conversation, these kinds of conversations with more people within my district.
Agreed. Let's make that happen, Sandy.
Life goals.
Yes, life goals. Hashtag life goals.
We're gonna plan the next round, Sandy.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right,
for having
everyone.
us.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. And again, Marianne and Sandy, we brainstorm a lot. So if we need to brainstorm about this, let's do it. Everyone else on the call, let's do the same. We're here for you and we're here to support. So whatever you need. Thank you so much. Have a great, great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.